Good governance is not firefighting or crisis management. Instead of opting for ad hoc solutions, the need of the hour is to tackle the root cause of the problems. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today revolves around many subjects, including COVID-19, as well as the Post-City Economic Commission bill that would be tabled in Parliament this week and up for debate on the 19th and the 20th. To discuss all this and more, we've invited 4 guests to our studio this evening as well. They are no strangers to Face the Nation and to you at home. Joining us this evening on the show are Dr. G. Veerasinghe, General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Communist Party. Also joining us tonight on the show is Dr. Harsha De Silva, Member of Parliament, Samaga Jana Balawegaya. Also joining us tonight on the show is Attorney at Law Nishan Premathi Ratna, Sector Specialist for Commercial Law Reforms, Ministry of Justice, as well as Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, Member of Parliament from the National People's Power. So let's start off tonight's show with Dr. G. Veerasinghe, General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Communist Party. Dr. G. Veerasinghe, because you are a medical doctor, I want to pose my first question to you on the way in which the government is tackling the COVID-19 problem. Are you satisfied the way in which the government is battling the third wave as far as Sri Lanka is concerned? Let's not talk about whether the government is doing a good job or a bad job, but are they at least doing a reasonable job to tackle the third wave in Sri Lanka? Your time starts now.
Yeah, I think we have discussed many times this topic in this studio, even previously, right? Now you are asking me about the third wave, right? The tackling of third wave. Obviously, starting from the second wave, the government, I would say not the government, I mean it has not been tackled satisfactorily, right? We know that during the first wave that, the country was able to manage it, I mean, we were able to manage it successfully. But when it came to the second wave, we were probably moving away from science towards myths, and probably we missed the bus there. And then of course the third wave has come. Now it looks like that we are utterly disorganized. Therefore you see that the managing the third wave of course is not satisfactory. But then you see why it has happened so, according to my assessments, that there are many parties which are responsible, I mean, which are not doing their job to the satisfaction of or up to the required level, right? Now is the political leadership of course are lacking. They are not making adequate decisions at correct time. We can see that. But then technical leaders also are not performing to the required level, right? Now at the moment the most important task, probably there are 2-3 things that we have to do urgently, not urgently, I mean the most important things, right? One of them is actually the vaccination program, right? Vaccination. I have spoken about vaccination many months back, even with a meeting at a meeting with the president. I pointed out, right? I requested the president to take an active stance towards vaccination, because I showed him I showed him how we can do it, and what are the figures involved in that, all those things I discussed with him, and I requested him to take an active stance towards vaccination program, right? That time it was not accepted. But then they are political leaders. You can't excuse them saying that they are political leaders. But then the Ministry of Health also did not have a firm stand on that matter, I would say. They did not have a firm stand on that matter. And then we don't have to discuss about this various penny and all these things. We messed it around, by promoting various unnecessary things. So, but then you see the importance of vaccination program is probably you know, it is, I mean, that is the most important thing even at the moment.
Dr.
Right?
Veerasinghe, you say that you are thoroughly disappointed the way in which the government has acted as far as COVID-19 is concerned. But let's talk about the Astrazeneca vaccine that was supposed to arrive in Sri Lanka on time. And we are now aware that it's not going to come anytime soon. However, the government has made a commitment saying that we will get the second dose in time when the time comes. However, when you look at the vaccination program, they initially said the frontline workers would be those who would be vaccinated for the second dose. However, when you speak to the affluent in Colombo, in the circles that we usually mingle, most of them have got the second dose of vaccination, and none of them are frontline workers. So what is the government's mechanism? They are putting all the people who got the first dose in limbo. There is no proper program at all. What is the reason behind it?
I agree with you. I agree with you. You see that now I live in Pittakot area, and I see every day morning hundreds of people are on queues, you know, to receive this vaccine, right? It shouldn't have happened that way. You know, you would have organized it in a very nice manner, but which is not happening. But then you see that, you know, that there are many people who are responsible for this status of affairs. But let me tell you a few more things, right? Vaccination is very important, right? This is one area where we need to move on, right? Where we have to organize our acts together, and then, you know, we have to secure vaccines. You know, we have to do whatever possible and to get down vaccine and to, you know, start giving vaccine to the entire population. That is one thing. But then, until we receive vaccines, you can't wait without doing anything, right? You know, this is why, you know, I have been proposing throughout to go for a, you know, community-based program. You see, involve communities in the control of coronavirus, I mean, this pandemic, this epidemic, right? Involve people, you know, community, you know, involve communities. Now, you see, this concept has become more important now than even earlier, because, you know, now, you know, we are in a position where we have no capacities to admit all patients who, I mean, all those who are detected as positives. So there are a lot of people who are identified as coronavirus positive and who stay at homes. Therefore, you know, these people need some support in their neighborhood. This is why, you know, we were talking about the necessity of a community-based approach in tackling COVID, right? And the third most important thing is that, you know, people are getting a lot of confused information. You see that we don't see a clarity of information that we are receiving from various parties. You see that, therefore, we have suggested the government to have one coordinated center to provide information with clarity to people, right?
Thank you very much, Dr. G. Veerasinghe, General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Communist Party. I think what you are saying about not having a collective voice in terms of bringing out the government stance on COVID-19 is very imperative, because last week on Face the Nation, individuals who are representing the government as well as the Health Promotion Bureau said it's important to treat patients at government facilitated centers. However, a few days later, we saw the government making an announcement stating that asymptomatic patients will be treated at home. So the government doesn't seem to have a clear policy as far as how they should move forward when battling the third wave of COVID-19. We now move our attention to Dr. Harsha De Silva, a Member of Parliament of the Samanga Jana Balawegaya. Dr. Harsha, staying on the same topic before we move on to the Ports and Economic Commission bill, people are somewhat excited that you were very instrumental in bringing forth the much needed ambulance service to Sri Lanka a few years ago. As a result of that, the government is now reaping the benefit of admitting patients at least in a streamlined manner. However, the cost of these ambulances have now come into the spotlight. I saw today you spoke to the media and said you spent approximately around 7 million for an ambulance, and now the government is looking at approximately 18 million per ambulance, and now the government has said that they want to purchase 10 ambulances only. Do you see the government's thinking of getting down only 10 ambulances in a situation like this and not moving towards a higher number? Your thoughts on this?
Thanks. No, it does not make any sense to me why they want to get 10 ambulances. If they got 100 or 200, then that's a different story. What can you do with 10 ambulances? You know, you might as well have equipped the ambulances that are available, or actually use that money. I mean, you see the number of letters that are coming from hospital administrators, medical superintendents in hospitals asking for all kinds of equipment. Perhaps they could have been resolved. So I don't know who took that decision to bring just 10 ambulances. Doesn't make any sense to me. You asked about the cost. Yes, I saw the cost. I mean, 19.4 million rupees an ambulance seems very high to me, because when we ordered the ambulances, of course people laughed at it at the time. They made jokes, memes, they showed people pushing ambulances and all that. And they said, don't get into these ambulances, these are Indian made and so on. But we celebrate our 5th anniversary on the 28th of July this year. And I tell you, all ambulances are working fine from Point Pedro, Dondra. We are taking so many people to hospital every single day. And our people are working 24/7. You know, I applaud them. You know, they are doing an amazing job, and we must all thank them. Now,
how much did you spend on an ambulance, Harsha?
We spent $34,800 an ambulance. So
approximately around $7 million.
That's $7 million. But that included the ambulance, it included the telephone, the Google device, it included 2 cylinders of oxygen, it included the suction equipment, it included the patient monitor system, which means we have computers inside the unit which is connected to the command and control center. It included cameras, and if you recall, people laughed at me saying I don't know what a defibrillator is, and they showed a jumper cable, said don't get into these ambulances, you may get electrocuted. Those, doctor, you will concur with me, external automatic defibrillators, each at the time cost about 500,000 rupees. All together cost 7 million rupees. Okay, they are not luxury, but it serves the purpose. So from 7 million including all these to almost 20 million, I don't know what that includes, is a stretch. But yes.
Yeah, can I pose my next question to you? Harsha?
Yeah.
So the next question is, Harsha, today you met, getting back into one of our other topics.
Can I make some observations on your first question about the COVID thing?
Yeah.
Is, you know, see, to me, it is a lack of leadership. You see, since you asked about our 1990, we run this the network using technology. We have precision technology, right? And whether it is in you know, in some remote village in Jaffna, or in the busy city office building, we are able to send that ambulance on time, generally under 15 minutes, right? So if we use technology to have a mechanism where people are given an appointment time and say, look, you know, you should go here and get your vaccine at this particular point, it could have been managed. We have 20 odd million mobile phones and everybody can get an SMS. It is not that difficult, right? But I don't see the use of technology. We talk about technology. Even when the president, before he got elected, he said, well, I'm going to change the system, I'm going to bring in technology, I have technocrats in my team, but I see the, you know, absolutely, you know, low level of technology use in this whole vaccination program, right? So, but going beyond that, there is a lack of leadership. Now, if you look at it, I break it down to 2 sort of areas. One is the health issue, like the doctor told, you know, about the vaccination, or about you know, the management of the patients, or about having wall oxygen in hospitals, or having what do you call, ventilators, or high what do you call those, high flow oxygen units or what have you, right? And that is to do with health. Now there are 4 ministers of health. Then there is the Secretary Health, then there is the Director General Health, then the Epidemiology gentleman, right? Then there is General Shavendra Silva, all dealing with the health issue. So who is finally responsible? You tell me. Who do they report to? Who does General report to? Who does Pavitra report to? Is there somebody on top of them? Or does the General report to Pavitra? Pavitra reports to General? Who? I don't know who. You see, when you run an organization, there has to be one leader. And that leader, let me finish. One leader must say, look, this is what is going to be. Right? And then you have the economic issue. Gamini Lokuke says, well, I am going to open up Piliyandala because the economics of Piliyandala is more important than the health of Piliyandala. Who takes that decision? And now he said, open up Piliyandala. Now you can't even go, you can't even cite the damn place because it's all full of corona patients.
So, Dr. Harsha, getting back into the subject that, because we're talking about 2 subjects today, one is COVID-19 as well as the Port City Economic Commission bill. Now, 4 weeks ago, we had a representative of the Port City sitting here on the very show and eloquently spoke about the importance of the Port City project. And one of the claims that he made was, this is not a bill that was tabled by this government. This was tabled or discussed with individuals in the previous regime, that is the Yahapalne government. And one of the members who sat in this committee was Dr. Harsha De Silva. And he said he's aware of what this Economic Commission bill is all about. And why is he making a fuss now about it? Because this is something that was originated from their government. And you were a member of it. What are your thoughts on this?
I was not just a member, I was the chairman of the steering committee, right? And I am, if it is Mr. Alvihar you are referring to, I don't know who it was. I mean, was it Tulsi?
Yeah,
was it? Okay. I mean, Tulsi and I and others worked together on this. We want the Port City to succeed. There is no issue about that. You know, there are special economic zones everywhere. If you look at the ASEAN countries, whether it is, you know, developed countries like Singapore, then countries like Philippines, Malaysia, there are dozens of these things. It started in Shenzhen in 1980, you know. The economic growth of Shenzhen for the first like 20 years was something like almost 20% year-on-year growth as opposed to the mainland China, which was about 7 or 8%. So it is not that we are making a hue and cry about the Port City. It is about this specific piece of legislation that they have brought. And I can show you, if you give me the time, how different the original draft was. And actually there is one draft between the original draft which I chaired the steering committee and I gave it to the Prime Minister, and then that was being discussed. Subsequently, one was prepared by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, which was very, very similar to the one that was prepared by us in 2019.
Right, so we'll speak in length as we go on.
Yeah. However, what the President has done through PB Jayasundara and presented now is very different to that.
Okay.
Right? So, you know, I am no crybaby coming and saying, look, we don't like it. We want it to succeed, but we are certain that it will not succeed if you go with this kind of legislation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harsha De Silva, Member of Parliament of the Samang Jana Balavagia. I want to move my attention to Dr. Harini Amarasuri, Member of Parliament of the National People's Power, because we are staying on the subject of the Port City Economic Commission bill, and then switch to Attorney at Law Nishan Premitharatna, who is a sector specialist for commercial law reforms at the Ministry of Justice. Dr. Harini, interestingly, I want to talk about this lockdown now. It was brought forward just a few days ago, probably knowing the fact that the Muslims would be celebrating Eid on Friday as a result of them going to their neighbors and celebrating Eid in a pompous and a very with a lot of pomp and pageantry. They stopped that, which is well and good, because we learned a lesson from the April holidays which was experienced a few weeks ago. However, the government lifted the lockdown this morning, and today we saw in the news that the lockdown will be imposed once again, very ad hoc, again on Friday night, and would be imposed up until Tuesday. Now, my question to you is, was this lockdown that was imposed on Friday done in light of bringing the Port City Economic Commission bill into action, which is tomorrow? Because it seems that the government has planned it out quite well, because even today we saw how $100 billion FDI agreement was signed by the government just a few hours before the Supreme Court determination comes into Parliament. Now, what is the government trying to do with all this? Seems very well planned out. Seems like a wonderful play that is being presented out to the public.
No, absolutely. I don't think it's ad hoc at all. It's extremely obvious what the government is doing, that this whole, and let's use the correct terminology now. We're not in lockdown, we're only having travel restrictions, right? Don't ask me what the difference is between travel restrictions and lockdown, but that's the terminology that we are supposed to be using. So how, I mean, it's very clear that the travel restrictions have been put in place, were put in place and lifted today to enable Parliament to meet the next 3 days. And travel restrictions are back on Friday, and we'll go on with 1 day's break on the 25th till the end of the month, 28th. So why? What is so important about the next 3 days that the travel restrictions have to be lifted for those 3 days? It's clearly for the Parliament to convene and push this bill through. Now, we may have different opinions about the content of the bill, but I think we all agree that this bill will have tremendous impact, not just on the economy, but politically, on the environment, on all kinds of sectors in this country, right? So it's a piece of legislation that...
when you say impact, Harini, do you mean to say positive impact or negative impact?
Well, either way. I mean, let's leave all of that aside, whether it's good or bad, but it's a bill that has significant impact on very many sectors for this country, politically, for our international foreign relations, economically, in every way. So surely such a bill requires far more debate and discussion and consultation, and surely the people of this country have a right to know what is in the bill, what the Supreme Court has asked for as amendments, and where we can bring about those amendments, and at least to have a discussion about the Supreme Court determination. And don't forget, the Supreme Court can only determine whether it's constitutional or not. Right. There are other areas, the socio-political, economic aspects of the bill, which the Supreme Court cannot comment upon. And that has to be commented upon by experts, and also all citizens have a right to know what that impact is going to be. We are not going to have the opportunity to do any of this. As you know, the way the current Parliament is constituted, however much the opposition may resist, they can pass this bill. They are going to pass this bill.
So my question to you is, my next question is directed on what you said before, Dr. Harini. See, the opposition wanted at least 2 days to debate this bill. Now that has been given by the government in a form of the 19th and 20th, being the 2 days of May that the bill would be debated in Parliament. The question is, what happens if the opposition raises concerns about the bill? Must the government listen to the opposition and amend the bill accordingly? Yes or no?
Well, it should, but that's not how it's going to be. You know, it is tomorrow that we are going to get the Supreme Court determination. Then the amendments, if I understand the procedure correctly, can only be brought in at the committee stage. Then it can't go back to the Supreme Court. No, neither can it go back to the public for public consultation. Everything has to happen between the 18th and 19th, and we have to vote on the on the 19th and 20th, and on the 20th we take a vote, right? So this precedent of making of bringing in amendments in committee stage is actually not good at all in terms of important pieces of legislation. No, but we need to have more time. We can't rush through these kinds of legislation. We had no opportunity. There was no sectoral committee. There was no consultative committee process prior to the bill being tabled in Parliament. You know how they tabled it also during the holidays, so that there was only one day in which people could file objections, even in the Supreme Court. All of this suggests, I think it's very obvious that the government did not want this bill discussed, debated, and any kind of public discussion to take place on
Dr. Harini, what I'm trying to figure out is, now the government has a clear majority in Parliament, which is undoubtedly, they have approximately around 157 members right now voting in favor of any bill or motion that is being tabled by them. So given the fact that this bill is going to be debated for 2 days, that is on the 19th and the 20th, let's say the opposition makes a hue and cry about certain amendments to the bill. So can the government ignore all these amendments and do what they please to do even after this being debated in Parliament?
Yes, absolutely. The way the Parliament is currently structured and the way the sort of Parliament culture has developed over the last 8 months during my tenure in it, it is very clear that the government can simply steamroll over the opposition, pay absolutely no attention to basic democratic principles, and just use their numbers to get what they want done.
And that's quite unfortunate.
It's extremely, it's not just unfortunate, it's extremely dangerous, because though this government is now increasingly being mocked for its reversals, and I heard the latest meme is about gazette reverse, right? But this is not a gazette. This is a piece of legislation which cannot be reversed, right? Which we are stuck with till, for, well, you know, whatever, till this bill can actually be changed or amended, which God knows when can happen, and by that time the damage is done.
However, I spoke earlier about this as well. 100 billion US dollars running into the country as FDIs today. We saw this in the news. Quite a significant number, and this is what Sri Lanka needs. And someone who's looking from outside may think, why is the NPP and why is the SJB not in favor of 100 billion US dollars gushing into the country as FDI? Isn't this what the government wants? Isn't this what the people want?
100 billion?
No, 100 billion US
100
dollars.
billion?
100 billion US dollars.
No, but where are you getting that
I have the figures. I'll
Committee on Public Finance, Doctor, and the official release is here. It says 100.
I was in the meeting of the Committee on Public Finance.
Yes, but they have sent the release saying it's 100 billion. I have it with me right now.
Yeah, they probably don't know the difference between millions and billions.
So whatever
That
the
is
numbers
Parliament
are,
of Sri Lanka for you.
right?
No, but the point
Whatever
is,
the
what are
numbers
they
are, I'm
going to
just
do, whether
basing
it's
it on
100 million, 10
10
million, or
whatever
100
it
billion?
is. Someone might say,
Yeah.
why is the opposition so selfish about gaining something to the country?
No, the opposition, I don't think any member of the opposition is opposed to foreign investment in the country, right? But we do not think, at least the NPP does not think, that this bill is going to succeed in the way that it is set out, it is presented, right? And that we need to also look at what the economic priorities of this country are, what are the problems the people are facing right now, what are the critical issues, and how is this 100 million, 100 billion, 10 million, whatever it is, how is it going to help resolve any of those questions? Is it going to bring fertilizer to the farmers? Is it going to bring vaccinations to the people of this country? Is it going to bring the much needed medical equipment to the hospitals? Is it? We don't know. We don't know what this money is coming in for, who it's going to, what it's going to be invested in.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, Member of Parliament of the National People's Power. Looking at all this, Attorney at Law, Nishan Premathiratna, Sector Specialist for Commercial Law Reforms, Minister of Justice, you had a grin right on your face when the three speakers were speaking about COVID and also about the Economic Commission Bill. Seems to me that you had something stored in yourself to talk and highlight to the public. But I want to pose a question to you, Nishan. Nishan, a few weeks ago when you were on the show, you were very optimistic about this bill and you said this is the way forward for Sri Lanka. It's important to see the way in which Sri Lanka would grow in the next few years as far as FDIs are concerned, as far as economic growth is concerned. And we have to have a model like Dubai, Singapore in Sri Lanka as well. Now, you've also heard a lot of remarks made by the opposition on the bill. saying it's one-sided. You just heard Dr. Harsha De Silva saying this is not the original bill that was discussed with the Port City officials. He was the chairman of the steering committee. What are your thoughts now? Have you changed your position now in terms of the Port City Economic Commission bill, or are you still steadfast about how this Economic Commission bill is going to have a positive impact on the country's economy?
Thank you, Shamir. Thank you very much again for the opportunity. On the last day when I came to the show, I told you all that I had perused the bill only for 2 hours. Now, after that, it has been over about 6 weeks, I believe, and there had been 24 petitions filed in the Supreme Court objecting to the bill. And Supreme Court heard the petitions for over 10 days. Now, petitions were filed by several political parties. Basically, all the main political parties filed petitions, and Council made submissions on most of the aspects which were spoken out in the public domain before the Lordships in the Supreme Court. I must also say that I appeared for 2 intervenient petitioners in the Supreme Court, and I also made submissions for the bill. So, answering your question, have I lost my optimism? The answer is no. I have probably grown more in favor of this bill. Pursuant to having come on this show, I went in, now for the submissions I made before the Supreme Court, I compared the BOI Act, which is an act which is already in existence. Several provisions which are found in the BOI Act are exactly found and replicated in the Port City Commission. So the demons, or as I submitted respectfully to the Supreme Court, my position was that this is not a Jurassic Park. This bill is not creating a Jurassic Park. It was portrayed by many that the legal provisions in the bill creates a superpower, creates a commission, affects the sovereignty of the people, divides the state, the attachment of land or the reclaimed land is not part of the Sri Lankan territory. Submissions were made that the Port City Commission cannot be subject to judicial review, but all those positions legally cannot be met. And when you look at the SCC Commission Act, for that example, SCC controls over 3,000 billion public investments, 3,000 billion. SCC controls the CSC and all the listed companies. Now the SCC, I think you posed a question to me on the last day about how self-regulatory autonomous bodies in the UK or in London used to function. So I said that you need a degree of a self-autonomous, self-regulatory ability to a body which is created for the purposes of incentivizing investors. However, such has to be under the purview of the judicial or the judicial framework of our country. Now, the SCC Act also gives the SCC the power to make rules which can be punishable as offences. So now, a major argument which was taken was the fact that Section 74 of this proposed bill has a provision where the SCC, where the Port City Commission is also empowered to make rules which can be then used as offences to punish the perpetrators who violate them. So whether that in turn violates the lawmaking power of Parliament was discussed. But when you look at the laws which are in existence in our country at the moment, the Port City Bill is nothing alien. Every provision which is found in existing laws are still found in the Port City Commission. So,
and more,
yeah, which are not in violation. It's my position. This is my position. As I told you all the other day, Shamir, I am not here as a representative of the minister. I am not here as a representative in my capacity as the sector specialist or for commercial reforms, but this is my opinion, and these were the submissions I made to the Supreme Court, that with all due respect, what my position to the Supreme Court was that these provisions are all amenable, or the Port City Commission, the members in the Port City Commission are subject to judicial
But do
review.
you think, Nishan, as a lawyer who's quite conversant with commercial law reforms in the country, don't you think the way in which this bill came into play is not the best way a bill should be tabled in Parliament, or the best way to bring about such an important piece of legislation to the country? Do you think?
Now,
Or do you think something more should have been done in terms of bringing it as a white paper, discuss it, so on and so forth?
Shamir, the other day I also said that this Port City was not something which was that was always in the pipeline from 2014. From 2014, and then the Yahapalana government also saw the benefits of the Port City, and then there was a proposed bill which was brought in, and the position is that that bill had been amended, but I am not here to comment on that. But the argument is, in our country we have a constitution, and in the constitution clearly the sovereignty of the people has been fundamentally recognized, and the separation of powers has been set out in terms of Article 3 and Article 4 of our constitution. Now, a Supreme Court of this country gives 10 days of hearings from 9:30 a.m. to 6 or 5:30 p.m. where all these representations were also made. But as Dr. Harini concedes, which I concur, the Supreme Court is not going to look at the intention behind the legislature.
Yeah.
It is only going to be looking at whether the bill, whether it requires a 2/3 majority, or whether it requires another additional referendum, or whether all the provisions can be passed by a simple majority. So that is what the Supreme Court
So
will
then
do.
what is happening to the socio-political economic situation as far as the Port City Economic Bill is concerned?
So that is why the legislature, the sovereignty of the people is vested with the parliamentarians who are in Parliament. That is why Dr. De Silva is here, that's why Dr. Harini is here. That's
But if
what
the
they are
government is
going to do.
bulldoze its way to pass the bill in
So
question,
that is also the
in an
franchise of the
undemocratic
people. The
manner.
people, now I am not a political voice, but my logic behind this is, people have given a mandate. We have a representative democracy. We don't have a direct democracy like in Switzerland. The people have appointed representatives in the form of 225 members, and out of which a 2/3 majority is with a certain governing party. So that is the mandate of the people. So, however, in a good democracy, opposition can voice their concerns in Parliament, and they will be doing that tomorrow and day after. All of these positions will be taken, but ultimately it is the sovereignty of the people which is they are being discussed in Parliament. It is the representative. So it is too bad. It is not my position here to come and tell all of you all that there should not have been a 2/3 majority given to a government. But people have given that. And that mandate is in Parliament. This happened with the 19th Amendment, 20th Amendment, and it will happen again.
Right. So thank you very much, Attorney General Nishan Premratna, Sector Specialist for Commercial Law Reforms, Ministry of Justice. Quite thought-provoking statement right at the end, Nishan. So we'll debate about this as the show goes on. We'll open the floor for questions from our journalists. On to my immediate right is Nadim. Immediate left is Jamal. On to my far left is the young John Fernando. But before all this, we're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll discuss about Sri Lanka's current political climate with an emphasis on COVID-19, as well as the Port City Economic Commission Bill, which will be debated in Parliament in a day from now. Stay connected, stay with Face Nation. We will be right back.
COVID-19 සඳහා ආරක්ෂිත පියවර. නිතරම හොඳින් සබන් යොදා දෑත් සෝදන්න. සබන් හෝ විසබීජ නාශක මධ්‍යසාරයක් භාවිතා කර දෑත් පිරිසිදු කරන්න. සැම විටම අන් අය සමග මීටරයක දුරස්ථභාවයක් පවත්වා ගන්න. හැකි සෑම විටම නිවසේ රැඳී සිටින්න. නිරතුරුවම නිවැරදිව මුඛාවරණ පළඳින.
මේ රට වට බැඳි මහා චලකඳ අපේ රටේ වටිනාකම දිනෙන් දින ජාත්‍යන්තරයට කියා පානවා.
ගංගාවල තියෙන ඉතාම වටිනා පිරිසිදු ජලයට අපද්‍රව්‍ය එකතු කිරීමක සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා.
මේ මහා පරිමාණ විනාශයට විරුද්ධව ක්‍රියාත්මක වීම කියන එක ඉතාම අවශ්‍යයි. එහෙම ක්‍රියාත්මක වුණොත් විතරයි මේ වෙන මහා විනාශය නතර කිරීමේ හැකියාව තියෙන්නේ.
පරිසරය වෙනුවෙන් ඔබ යමක් කිරීමට කැමති නම් ඔබ වෙනුවෙන් අප ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්න සූදානම්.
රන් අඩපැය කාලයේ බුද්ධිමය ආමන්ත්‍රණය.
මේ කාමරේ ඔයාට මොන වගේ?
හැඟුම්බරනම් සෙනෙහවන්තනම් ආදරණීය නම් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම කොයි තැන වුණත් ඒක පේනමක් තැනක් වෙනවමයි නේද?
ඕනෑම ගැහැණියෙක් දරුවෙක් ප්‍රසූත කරන්නට පීතෘත්ව තිබිය යුතුමයි. ඒතකොට ඒක අවජාතක වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
රියදුරු වෘත්තිය කාන්තාවකට නුසුදුසුයි කියලා.
බස් එකක් කරයි යනවා දැකලා නැහැනේ.
හරියට ඩ්‍රයිව් කරන්න බෑ. යන්න දන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක ඇත්තද?
බැරි දෙයක් නැහැ කාන්තාවන්ට.
මගේ දැස්සම පේන්නේ නැහැ අවුරුදු 20ක් තිස්සේ. එහෙම කොහොමද S2ක් පෙනීම නැතුව කෙනෙක් ගනුදෙනු කරන්නේ හා සාර්ථක වන්නේ? කාන්තාවක් නිකරුණේ ගණිකාවක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. කාන්තාවන්ව හොයාගෙන යන පිරිමින්ව කවුද අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්නේ?
මට කියන්න බෑනේ කොණ්ඩේ කපලවාට පිරිමි ක්‍රියාන් කියලා. මේක අපේ රටට සංස්කෘතියට ගැලපෙන දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. ඔයාට ඒක දැනෙන්නේ නැත්නම් ඔයාට ඒක අවශ්‍යතාවය නැත්නම් මට ඔව කොල්ලෙක් කරන්න බෑ.
පිරිමි ගණිකාවක් ඉන්නවා අපේ රටේ. ගණිකාවන් කියන්නේ බ්ලැක් මාක් එකක් කියලා නෑ. පිරිමි තමයි හරිම සෙන්සිටිව්.
පිරිමින්ගේ තියෙන අකමැතිම ගතිගුණය මොකක්ද?
කොණ්ඩ පැනතිකම.
හිරිය ගෑනුන්ගේ සමාජාගමනය දිගැස.
රන් අඩපැය කාලයේ බුද්ධිමය ආමන්ත්‍රණය.
Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We'll start off the Q&A from our journalist with John.
Thank you, Shamir. I'd like to continue the topic that we were in discussion before the commercial break. Mr. Premitraratna, if we take a look at the recent past, now when it comes to certain transactions or things that happened in the government, now major scams or frauds such as the bond scam, even recently there was a sugar scam. Now in the recent past, these was exposed thanks to the COPE and COPA committee. Now like you mentioned before, right before the commercial break, if this commission bill or this transaction between the port city and the government, if it brings a positive effect to the country, now will committees like the COPE and COPA be able to monitor port city accounts?
Yes, there is. Now in law, certain acts can have ouster clauses also. You can have certain acts have ouster clauses which say that the decisions of these commissions are final, or a decision cannot be challenged by a court of law. Now courts have held that the constitutional power given to a court is unfettered. Then also the Port City Commission, in terms of Article 154, the Commission is audited as per the provisions of the Constitution itself. It is not the Auditor General who is auditing the Port City Commission, but a qualified auditor as per the Constitution itself. The Constitution has provided another modality of auditing a commission. So it uses the word, the initial bill placed used the word qualified foreign reputed law firm, something of that nature. But notwithstanding, it specified, it may be. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, but it specifies, it clearly takes you to Article 154 of the existing constitution, and the scrutiny ought to be done as per the provisions of the constitution. And in addition, all citizens in this country, there is a Right to Information Act. So the commission can be subject to, the commission also falls within the purview of the Right to Information Act, and that is, I think that was brought during the Yahapalana regime. That's a very good piece of legislature, and you can write to the commission, you can ask for all information in respect of all agreements which have been entered in respect of authorized persons. You can get them, compel them to release it. If they don't, you can take them to court in terms of the RTI. So it is the same with the SCC, it is the same with the BOI, it is the same with the CSC. There is no, this is not a predator, the Port City Commission.
So the question is, we just got a question from one of our viewers, Nishan. So the question that is directed at you is, yes, people have elected representative to parliament, there is no question about that. However, there is no 2/3 given to the government. The government bought over certain members. I'm not saying this is the question that is being posed by one of our viewers. But why is the rush? Why not give ample time to discuss it amongst the representatives in parliament and discuss about the possible flaws, and then discuss it, debate it, and bring it forth as a democratic piece of legislation? So that question is to you, Nishan.
So Shamir, with all due respect to the gentleman or the lady who has posed this question, I am not sitting in parliament and I am not governing this country. But I would also concur with that question. It would be better if more transparency and the views of all stakeholders were sought.
So you agree with the fact that this was bought with an ulterior motive, because you just said, you just said this should have been done in a more transparent manner. So that means it was not done transparently.
No, I think,
or not enough.
Now, if there are
that is what you were inclining to say.
No, what I was inclined to say is, if people feel that the people are going to be actually bothered about a Port City Commission bill, when the crowning of the Miss Sri Lanka or Miss Universe is seemingly getting the high, at the time this bill came or bill was proposed, the discussions in our social media and in our setup was not in respect of the bill. But still, the bill was presented in the legal manner on the requirements of the constitution, and it was placed, and there were 24 petitions. But if our democracies have elevated ourselves to a level where we can consider them being on par to the UK or any other developed democracy, so then that has to be a uniform thing which all governments adopt. I am not here to defend any government, any bill. Now the 19th Amendment, if for that matter, now I am not condemning the 19th Amendment, but the 19th Amendment was also bought very fast. It was not put to the people. There were so many flaws in the 19th Amendment. You can't remove the president and the prime minister, there was a deadlock. So now, were we lawyers consulted? We didn't know. So this has been happening. So, but that is happening in terms of the law. The constitution is permitting a period where bills are presented to the auditor.
You say, Nishan, that you are not representing the Ministry of Justice, nor are you representing this commercial law reforms sector of the Ministry of Justice either. You are here today as an independent lawyer. Nishan, do you think the Ports and Economic Commission bill is the need of the hour in Sri Lanka at this very moment?
I thought it was the need of the hour in 2014.
No, I'm asking you right now. Given the fact the COVID number of deaths are almost hitting 1,000, there are 2,500 cases reported daily, plus cases reported daily in Sri Lanka. Do you think right now the need of the hour, I'm asking you this question because you're not representing the Ministry of Justice, but if you were representing the Ministry of Justice, I wouldn't have probably asked you this question. But as an independent lawyer, do you think that this is the need of the hour?
Yes, because the bill is being brought to Parliament where the legislature or the legislative representatives of our country are supposed to deliberate on it. Now we have an executive limb in this country which has its ministries, a task force to deal COVID. They are supposed to do that objective. They are supposed to do the vaccinations.
But even the person, the task force, head of the task force is not in the country at the moment.
So that is not the answer to the question. Now your question.
No, I'm saying, now you're saying that the task force has been
I'm not, I don't know about the task force, Shamir. I'm not
but
here
you just
to,
mentioned that.
Yeah, I meant, no, what I meant was.
You said that task force has been entrusted with the responsibility of looking after COVID related issues. However, the head of the task force is not in the country. He's in the US. In a situation like that, do you think it's prudent to bring this economic commission bill into
Parliament? My argument to you, my answer, simple, humble position was the legislature is doing that duty. 225 representatives. Otherwise, now, with all due respect, now can anyone here now decide the plight of any or the world for that matter in respect of COVID? Would this end in 1 year? Would this end in 2 years? Would this end in 3 years? Now I was just looking at the World WHO, which says, now I'm not here to say that COVID should be undermined. I'm not here to say that. I'm here to say that there's so much of uncertainty surrounding the global reaction to COVID.
Yeah,
so in that uncertainty, you need the legislature to still function.
Harsha, very interesting thoughts. Now, Nishant says that this is not a piece of legislation that has been drafted newly. This has been discussed since 2014, and you were part of this steering committee as well, and you were the chairman. You just admitted the fact that you were not just a member but the chairman of this committee in question. And then he also went on to say these are parts of the BOI Act that has been tabled in Parliament and has been enacted as a law in the country. So what is wrong with it? If that is the case, why is the opposition making such a hue and cry about it?
Unfortunately, I don't agree with Nishan here for multiple reasons. First, this is not a public corporation. It's not a state corporation. You see, what we pointed out in the Supreme Court is this particular draft in 3.2 says the commission shall by name assign to it under subsection 1 be a body corporate with perpetual succession, blah blah, right? It's a body corporate. Now, how is a body corporate established? Either you do it under the Companies Act or you do it in Parliament as a Act of Parliament. That is what we are trying to do here. Now, the constitution of this country very clearly says if it is a public corporation, then at least part of the capital or what is called the fund has to be committed by the government of Sri Lanka. Now, in the original draft of 2019 which I have, and the draft by the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also which I have, both very specifically say that part of the capital has to be contributed by the government through the budget. Very clearly says. Now in this draft, that section has been deleted, and the entirety of the start-up capital, what they refer to just a mere 400 million rupees, is to be contributed wholly by the company that is investing or that has invested on this reclamation of land. So there we have a problem. If it is not a public corporation, the audit or the power of COPE and COPA, nothing becomes material. You see, and as a matter of fact, just talking about that, the auditor in 15.1 says qualified auditor so appointed may be an international firm, but subsequently as you go down, it says the commission shall also appoint annually an international firm of accountants to audit, right? So therefore, it says very clearly that it shall appoint an international firm of auditors. So that's the first point of departure from what we had and what is present here. 1. 2.
What about the members of the commission? Because that's
the second point. That's the second point. The second point is who, I mean, this has wide powers, legislative powers, I'll come to that. The second point is who are the commissioners who wield such power in draft 1 and draft 2, they were ex officio members, meaning Secretary Ministry of Finance, Secretary of the Ministry, the UDA falls under, Governor Central Bank, and so on and so forth. Ex officio, 5 of them, 3 members appointed by the Constitutional Council, and 1 as chairman also appointed by the Constitutional Council. So
4 members there. So
4 members there.
And there was discussion about another member.
5 ex officio.
Ex officios, okay.
Yeah, right. So that is by the mere fact of them holding office in.
So are these individuals Sri Lankan nationals or foreign nationals?
No, we don't specify that in either of the first 2 drafts, but we are assuming that if they are ex officio, that they would be by and large Sri Lankan nationals. And then if it is there's another matter here. If it is a public corporation, you have to take the oath of allegiance that you will protect the constitution of Sri Lanka, right? It is in this constitution that if you are a public official, you have to do this. But if you are not, then there is no compulsion, or our law does not force a director of a private company to take the oath of allegiance in protecting the constitution of Sri Lanka, right? So in this case, I don't know whether it was Mr. Sabri or I don't know if it was the president, I don't recall now. Someone said, well, all commissioners, 5 to 7, according to this draft, who can be appointed purely by the president, can be all foreigners. So I think it was Mr. Ramesh De Silva in submission to court, he said they can all be foreigners.
So I want to quickly switch to
let me finish, right? That is the second point. The third point is that regulation. You see, the BOI, now the original draft and the second draft was BOI law. This was under BOI law, right? And this was a special economic zone, and this was another zone of the BOI. And the BOI is responsible, or is responsible to Parliament. We can call the BOI, the chairman, the minister in charge of the BOI. We can ask any questions. The books are audited by the Parliament, and there is no question about it. Right? This is completely something else. The third point is regulation. You see, we want to bring elite banks, private equity firms, insurance companies, all those things here. We want the top names to come here. And in any jurisdiction, whether you look at, Dubai, London, what have you, right? Of course, Dubai is different because it is a different law in Dubai, and British judges sit there in the DIFC. That's another model altogether. But even take Labuan in Malaysia, right?
Malaysia and even India for that matter.
Yes, but then the Indian one is not a big success. Is the domestic regulator regulates this. And in draft 1 and draft 2, the central bank was the regulator of offshore financial transactions at the port city. Now in this, it says the central bank has to give its concurrence, shall give its concurrence to the regulation done by the commission. Who are you trying to attract here? Not certainly the top names that are sitting in New York, London, Dubai, Tokyo and Singapore. You're going to bring in people from elsewhere. And that will lead to complications about TAFT, the task force, the Financial Action Task Force, the anti-money laundering issues, counter-terrorism issues and all that. We don't want that. And the fourth one is about the loophole that you can, there's a hole so big you can drive a truck through it. And you know what that is? Yes, it says, regulations have to be brought to Parliament and be approved. Granted. But what is taken away from it is, now I'll tell you the classic case, why tomorrow we are bringing to Parliament, or rather the government is bringing to Parliament what Jamal mentioned a little while ago. The Public Finance Committee agreed the 4 towers, which is called the Colombo International Financial City, CIFC towers. Now, the chairman of the BOI took pains to justify to the Public Finance Committee why he wants to give a 12-year tax holiday to this investment, which is of $1 billion over a period of number of years in 2 phases. And tomorrow, if we in Parliament say no, then they can't get that 12-year tax holiday. Not that it is ever going to, normally it doesn't get rejected. Let me finish, right? Which means the parliament has a right under Article 148, which gives parliament the full control of public finance, the right to decide to give this particular company the incentive that includes a 12-year tax holiday. But in this bill, the way it is, the draft, let me finish. You can give up to maybe 25 up to 40 years of tax holiday and tell parliament, hello, we gave this. Here is a piece of paper, you can file it in your library. Nothing, no approval from parliament. Right. What is that?
So let's talk about all these points momentarily, Dr. Harsha. I just want to quickly move to Dr. Veer Singh as well. Dr. Veer Singh, one of the points that was discussed here was the fact that foreign nationals can be appointed to the Port City Economic Commission. If that case is going to be as it is, if there are no amendments required by the Supreme Court, as Dr. Harini mentioned, this will go through and this would be passed in Parliament as a law. Now, we have an experience before with the bond scam, where we had a foreign national, and right now as we speak, he's absconding the court system in the country, and he's out at large. Right now, when there is such a massive issue with regard to COVID-19 cases in the country, we have Honorable Basil Rajapaksa right now in the US, because Sri Lanka has now been ranked as the second worst affected country in Asia. The Washington University has predicted the deaths to go up to 20,000. So given all these examples, do you think this is a prudent decision to be made by the government to appoint foreign nationals to this economic commission in question? What are the thoughts of the Sri Lanka Communist Party?
We are talking here about the composition of the commission, right? And probably this matter came to the courts also. It was discussed in the courts, and if I can remember very well, on behalf of the government, it was submitted that the majority of this commission are going to be Sri Lankans. That was conveyed to the courts. And I agree with you. You see that there are other suggestions that have been made to government. For an example, we, as the Communist Party, we have proposed the government, right? I mean, we also think that there should be certain individuals from, on ex officio capacity, right? And then we have requested the government to make a Sri Lankan as the president of this commission. Things like that we also have suggested the government. But having said all that, I have to say a few things about what was discussed here. Now, we as the Communist Party is in agreement with the concept of this project, right? And with the policy and with this strategy, right? All that, I mean, we are in agreement. As I said, however, we have suggested certain amendments, right? I mean, if you really ask me, I can just go through them. What we think is that you have to, this whole question has to be viewed in the context of certain things in the country. The country is in a deep economic crisis. It's deep and profound economic crisis. It is not a making of this government. It is the result of, you see, more than 40 years of neoliberal economic policies that we have been following up, right? The country is in a huge crisis, and then negative effect that we are receiving from the world, the crisis in the world, right? All these things we have to, and then the impact of the COVID-19, what is going to happen, with this COVID-19 to economies, right? So you have to take all that into consideration. And I don't agree with the idea that, that now you have such a huge pandemic in the country, you shouldn't, go with this, economic commission. I don't think. And the other thing, that was said here. Let me finish.
One quick question.
Let me finish. There was another thing that was said here, right? Okay, now you have argued the constitutionality of this bill in the courts, right? But then what? What about the socio-economic and political aspects of the bill, right? You know, what we have been doing during last 3, 4, 5 weeks in this country, we have been discussing this, right? And people can't say that it was not discussed. And these, you know, these members of the parliament, of course, had the copy. They received their copies of the bill somewhere in April. So they can't say that they are not aware and they are going to discuss it, right? I mean, it is not correct, right? And
Dr. Veerasinghe, very quickly, you said that the country is in this position today because of following neoliberal economic policies over the past
40 years,
40 years or so. Where do you put this Port City Economic Commission bill? Is it liberal, socialist, communist, neoliberal, neoconservative? Where does this fit in?
No. I am not going to classify.
No, you said
this.
The country is in an economic. Hold on, Dr. Veerasinghe. You said the country is in an economic crisis.
Yeah.
Because we have been following neoliberal economic policies for the past 4 decades. My question is, this concept of the Colombo International Financial Center, how would you classify it? Is it neoliberal economic policy or communist? Where on the scale do you place it?
No, nobody is going to say that it is a socialist or communist concept. Nothing like that. You see, nothing like that.
But then by going by what you said, because you said we are in this crisis because of neoliberal economic policies, if this is also in that same vein, then by your logic, this will drive us further into crisis.
No, I don't think so. Because you know, I mean,
but that's a contradiction.
No, there is no contradiction in these two things. I don't know whether you see that as a contradictory, as contradictory positions.
I read it also as very contradictory. I also read it as very contradictory.
Yeah, but no, why the 40 years of neoliberal economic policies
because
are very well known to us.
You're saying
right?
the solution to get out of 40 years of neoliberal economic policies is more neoliberal economic policy.
No, you can't say that it's more neoliberal economic policies either, right? Now at the moment, we are, what is the status of economy of this country at the moment, right? Look at the economy,
So Dr.
look at the balance of payment, right?
The Communist Party has changed gears. Can we come into that assumption?
No, I mean we are realistic, right? I mean we are not going. Shall I say this way, right? If we come to power tomorrow, right, we are not going to close the market. I mean, it is absurd, right? You have to move with the time. I mean, but then market needs certain.
So the Communist Party has changed gears because you are in government right now.
No, not because of that.
Or in support
now,
of.
You see, not because of not because of that. Not because of that, right? That is the reality of the day, right? I mean, you can't go back to closed economies anymore. Right, like what has happened in Soviet Union former.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Dr. Harini, have you all also changed policy? Because now I'm trying to figure out the Communist Party has
where the left stands.
Where does the left stand?
Yes. In all this, because it seems that the Communist Party has changed with time.
A couple of weeks ago, we heard that the Lanka Samaj Party has also changed
the plans.
Yes, I think that those changes took place some time ago.
So have you all shifted gears as well?
That is precisely why I said that it was necessary to have this discussion beyond a kind of a constitutional legal framework, right? Because we approach it from a point of view of the economic model that it is proposing, right? I agree with Dr. Veerasinghe to the extent that I think there is nothing in a socialist economic perspective that is only about a closed economy. And as the NPP, we don't propose going back to a closed economy, nor do we reject foreign investment, right? But we are also of the view that the economic crisis that we are facing currently is a result of the neoliberal economic policies of the last 30-40 years, right? That the economic crisis is a result of that. So I too was very puzzled when I heard Dr. Veerasinghe propose this very neoliberal economic model as the solution to that problem. Because if you look at this particular sort of special economic zones, it's not only unique to our country. There are hundreds, thousands of such economic centers across the world. right? And I was very recently reading a report of the UN Conference on Trade and Development, which has done an assessment of these economic zones, and the results are very mixed. The results are very mixed, and the results are very unclear on the actual impact, the positive impact of these economic zones in terms of what it actually does to the national economy of the country. Now, this is the argument that these projects bring in, right, that these special economic zones then have a spillover on the national economy, increasing employment opportunities, driving up economic growth, creating exchange of technology, technology transfer, all of these things. Very mixed results, right? Overall, there's a lot of lack of clarity as to the effectiveness of these models across the board, because it really depends on local conditions, the level of regulation, the type of investment.
Countries like Dubai, Malaysia, that Dr. Harsha mentioned, have done well. Singapore have done well.
Certainly, certain countries, certain economic centers have done well, right? But those have very specific features to those centers. Most of the centers that are doing well are geared to sort of very focused kind of investments. They don't sort of have multi-investments, sort of anything goes kind of thing. They are very much unregulated, and they are geared to a particular focus. The economic zone itself is set up with a particular objective in mind, right? So there are very, very different models. But what I wanted to say was, one of the things about the these kinds of economic zones is this idea, a complete belief in the trickle-down economy. Now, I think Harsh and I will also have different views on this, but I think the idea of trickle-down economy has been critiqued now by the very proponents of the theory itself, of which I mean, I think you were educated in the center of the neoliberal economic sort of headquarters, as it were, right? And that very place is now reversing some of their own ideas about this, and this idea of how these kinds of investments actually benefit the larger population is seriously questioned. Right. So the spillover from this. So this is what I also said in my opening remarks. If you look at the key economic problems that the people of this country is facing, it is not at all clear how this initiative is going to resolve those problems. Right. That is precisely why this issue, this project needed to be discussed much more. And even though we were presented with this just during the New Year break, you know that very soon after we went into the third wave of COVID. So how on earth was the public supposed to engage with it? How was any political group or any group that was critical of this project going to discuss it or take it out to the public so that the public could find out what was going on, right? All of that was limited. We went straight in after the New Year break into a third cycle of COVID.
So in terms of the composition, I just want to drag your attention once again to get the view of the NPP. With regard to foreign nationals who can sit in this commission in question now, does it pose a red flag as far as the NPP is concerned?
Yes, it does, because our experience with the bond scam has been very negative with regard to foreign nationals, and I must say this is very hypocritical also, right? Because with certain areas of governance, we are extremely critical of bringing in foreign nationals, right? When it comes to there were proposals earlier to bring in foreign judges, if you remember, right? To intervene in certain cases, to sit in on various
but that's altogether different scenario.
So how are foreign nationals okay for some and not okay for others? So it's okay for economic issues.
Why cherry pick certain issues and then?
Yeah, but if you are opposing foreign nationals, what is the principle behind it? That their loyalty lies not to a particular nation state, but that their loyalty is to some other cause.
Yeah, so
right? If that is the principle, then how can there be sort of, when it comes to one issue that's fine, but another issue it's not.
Dr. Hani, what is the NPP's position on foreign nationals being part of
I think that's the least of the problems, to be honest, whether they are foreign nationals or not.
Does the NPP have a position on it?
Yeah, we think that this kind of body has to be accountable to the citizens of this country, to the legislature of this country, and that the expertise should be, they should be from people who are accountable to the citizens of this country. And
what if the expertise is not available here?
Well, why not? Why do we assume?
I mean, take for example the Central Bank of Sri Lanka when it was initially set up. The very first governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka was an American.
Circumstance. It was in a very different era.
This
in a
is
very
also different
situation.
circumstances. This is the first time that something like this is being done in Sri Lanka.
But there are plenty of competent people in this country who are able to take this kind of again, as I said, that is not really the issue, right? I don't think that the nationality of the persons in the commission is the problem. The problem is, even if it's a Sri Lankan citizen right now, because supposing the commission is made up entirely of Sri Lankan citizens, those persons in that commission will not be accountable to the legislature of this country, to the parliament of this country.
So we have a question for Nishan from one of our viewers. Nishan, the question is, as a commercial law specialist, do you accept the fact that money laundering and transfer pricing and tax avoidance is positive from a nation and its economy and lawful business? Do you think that the country would yield results by having such draconian law as stated by the opposition in terms of the Port City Economic Commission bill?
So the Port City, on the last time I was
because one of the aspects that was brought forward by Harsha in one of his 5-point negatives as far as the Port City Economic Commission bill is concerned is the fact that the biggest loophole where a truck, as he said, can go through. So yeah, you can add.
So, but I said the earlier instance also, there are only certain pieces of legislature or acts which have been excluded, Schedule 2 and Schedule 3. But very clearly, the written law of the country as provided in terms of the act is the law of Sri Lanka. So it has not in any way attempted to exclude the criminal provisions or the criminal laws in our country. So the money laundering act, all of these positions were actually submitted to the Supreme Court also, that this is going to be a lawless land. That's why I used the terminology a Jurassic Park, that this will be dinosaurs and we will go to see these dinosaurs, and then the dinosaurs might come out of the big barbed wire gates and start eating all us Sri Lankans. And that
is your definition?
No, that was the definition, the portraying of...
But no one said it was Jurassic Park.
I termed it as Jurassic Park.
That's your definition.
I am defining it. It is not a Jurassic Park. It is not a Jurassic Park. So the criminal laws have not been excluded in any way. The only laws which have been excluded, I don't know whether Dr. Harsha will agree or not, but if you look at the schedule of the BOI Act, most of the laws which have been excluded in the BOI Act schedule have been excluded in this.
Why not have it under the BOI?
No, so let us. That is the thing. Now that is what you asked me that question that day. You asked me the question why don't. But you all also conceded the BOI was not a success story. You all conceded that.
No, I don't think we would have conceded. The panelists would have conceded that the BOI Act was not.
There was a. I can remember, but there was a sentiment that the BOI has not succeeded, and I think somebody said it was also portrayed as a very corrupt institute. Now, that's what I told you all the other day also. This is always going to be a work in progress setup. So we are bringing in a base regulatory framework so that we can work around and incentivize investors to come to our country. Now, there is no point making this the most strictest legal framework. If I told you, I gave you all the example of getting my house plan approved in the Colombo municipality. That takes about 6 to 7 months and still I have not got that approval. So now what have they excluded? Do you want investors bringing in millions and millions of dollars, wanting to go to the Colombo municipality, and I don't want to use that word even, but you need to do certain things to get things done. So that is the system. Now we are talking about foreign nationals and we are saying they might not be accountable. Then there is a school of thought that they might be better at what they are doing.
The problem is, Nishan,
yes,
looking at Sri Lanka's history, Now take a look at what happened with one of the strongmen of the government, example Basil Rajapaksa going to the US.
Yes.
Now the issue is not having foreign nationals is well and good. If they have the expertise, they can come to the country and do whatever they want. But as Dr. Harsha mentioned, they won't have any allegiance towards the constitution of the island, right? See what happened. With all this mess in the country, the foreign national who holds a US passport goes to the US to attend to his personal deed. I don't know what the deed is, but he's there. His allegiance is not towards Sri Lanka. He doesn't care about what's happening in Sri Lanka. He cares about his personal deed elsewhere in the world. Now, in a situation like that, do you think the people who are appointed to the Economic Commission Bill would have any love towards the land?
Now, to answer you, firstly, I don't concede about what you told about this name and the gentleman. I don't know him, and I don't know what transpired.
This is in the public domain.
Yeah,
You
so
don't
that,
know anyone.
So no, that's the thing. But I'm not aware of the
because
facts.
you are not representing the Minister of
I'm
Justice.
I'm not. So anyway, you have given an example, but that example and the example of, and it also has to be told, there are 7 members on this commission, but it was also proposed that 4 will be locals. That was one of the amendments which were proposed at the point of
Dr. Harsha.
That's not here.
It's not here. It's not here.
They can give any kind of understanding, but we are only debating what is here.
Anyway, I will stand by this. I don't want to stand by what. Anyway, what will happen is ultimately we all can, argue here till the cows come home. But ultimately, whatever the Supreme Court says, we are all going to put our hands up and agree to that. No, if the Supreme Court says
we don't have any other option.
No, you can't. We all believe that we have an independent judiciary. Now I put my hands up and I concede to that.
No, but
I believe
we
all
just agreed that the Supreme Court is only looking at the constitutionality.
That is the thing. So that is all. Now I am
so
here.
what about the social, political, economic aspects?
That we have our representatives here.
But they are not being heard.
Yeah, so they are going to be deliberating on this. So, but now coming to this question of whether these members can be foreigners and the impediment which can be caused if they are not accountable. So, look at the flip side. So, we put 7 Sri Lankans on this commission. Say the president is appointing 7 Sri Lankans. Now, I am not here to say that the Sri Lankans are going to do a better job than the foreigners. And how are you going to say that? We can't say that. We are blaming each other. We are blaming everyone in this country because we Sri Lankans are not good administrators.
I think you can agree though that regardless of whether it's 7 foreigners or 7 Sri Lankans or a mix,
yes,
the problem is that the president is going to be appointing them without any check or balance, and that is what's going. That is what is going to be a problem in them being accountable.
That is very wrong.
And not their nationality.
I don't agree on that because now.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, the Port City
very brilliant amendment to question the president's administrative power. The 19th Amendment brought that, and thereafter, even the
20th Amendment.
No, it didn't completely take it away. No.
They tried.
No. And I fully agree, and that should be in place.
They tried. Couldn't get it.
Yeah, whoever tried has tried, and it has failed, and it is there. So now that your point, there is a requirement that the president has to appoint people subject to a certain criteria. You can't appoint a person who has failed his O-levels.
What's the criteria?
So the criteria is provided in section 17. I will 17 or 18. I will.
It says experts in finance,
I will give
management. So they do mention that.
Do mention shall and uses the word shall. Uses the word shall and so then say hypothetically. Now me as a citizen in this country. So I am a citizen, I'm a citizen also, all of you all are citizens. I give me a minute. So then if the president appoints somebody who is not falling within the purview of this requirement, we all can take the president to court. Now you all will say, oh, who is going to take this president to court? We can. There is provision, there is checks and balances.
Again, on the checks and balances, because the law. Sorry, Dr. Desai.
Please. You have to. I want to say a lot of things, but I will keep it for later. But just to answer our friend here, you see, law. You're the lawyer. I think the word is ad hominem, right? is centered around a person, isn't it? Now, people are saying Gotabaya Rajapaksa is a good man. He loves this country. Let's for a moment assume that is the case. He is going to be there for 3.5 years. Let us assume he wins again and he's there for another 5 years, 8.5 years. He's gone. I come. And I appoint 5 other fellows. 20 years down the road, who knows who will come? He will appoint 5 other fellows. Then 40 years down the road, another fellow will come. He will appoint 5 other fellows. I say, how can you run a country like that? You see, you can't give a man complete authority. I mean, you are not appointing a director to the transport board, no, here. You are appointing a man or 5 women or 5 people with absolute control. Can make legislation, is not answerable to parliament, doesn't take the oath of allegiance, all of that. So, you see, the president has to be below the law. President can't be above the law. So, tell me if I'm wrong. Do you know 40 years down the road who will be the president? And this law, if it stays, right, is for 99 years.
Can I ask a small question, Dr.
Please.
Now you said that they can, this commission is empowered to make laws or legislations, right? Bring laws, right? Can they come into effect without going to parliament?
Most
no, I think no.
That's why I started at the very outset to bring everything into context.
I will show you.
SCC, monetary board. Okay, very well. I don't want to take Dr.
I said that most laws will have to be brought to parliament and will have to be approved in parliament. But I said there is a loophole as big as a hole that you can drive a truck through. I will show you, doctor. Here it says in 71 for every regulation, it says made under this act shall within a period of 3 months from date of publication be brought before parliament for approval. Correct? No? You are right. Now if you look at the loophole, the loophole is in 53. 53 it says, let me read it. This is what I said, you can give, now the Casino Act has been removed from this. I am not saying this is going to happen. I am saying, let's take an extreme case, right, Nishan? Yeah. Extreme case. A person comes, he says, I want to set up 5 casinos. Now, currently, the law is, it has to come to parliament and parliament has to approve, because this is under the SDP. Under this, what will happen? The authority is given by the commission, not by the parliament, authorizing an investor in setting up whatever business he or she wishes to. Okay? Now, this says this. Upon expiry of 30 days from the date of such order published Gazette under subsection 3, such order along with written confirmation issued under the hand of the commission confirming that the exemptions or incentives, which means the commission can give a 25-year tax holiday to this person who is going to set up 5 casinos. Incentives set out in the notification are compliant with the provisions in terms of Part 9 of this Act shall be placed before Parliament for information. Let me reiterate, for information. We are not, rubber stamps. Somebody going to keep a piece of paper on my desk in Parliament and say, Commission has sent you a document for information. I open it, it says, the Commission has given 25-year tax holiday for a man investing on 5 casinos on Port City. Now, what does that do? Isn't that taking away the legislative authority of Harini and myself and 223 others who are representing the 22 million people of this country? What is Nishan saying here? He says, look, the legislator is there to do that. No, that is what we are saying. We are, if we are representative democracy, we should have the power. This constitution very clearly says in Article 148, the Parliament shall have full control of public finance. So let me finish. We are not against Port City, right? We want the Port City to succeed, right? We are not, we are not kuhaka desapalakjas. We want it to succeed. But for it to succeed, this is not the right law. That's what we are saying.
Dr. Jeevir Singh, did Dr. Harsha respond to your question?
Yeah, you see that I still in the opinion that the whatever the the laws that you want to introduce will have to go to Parliament.
No, doctor, no. I mean, you can read it, no. I mean, why don't you read it?
It's table.
It's with table. It's for information.
So now that's quite alarming now.
Yeah.
If it's going to be tabled, and if individuals like Dr. Harini and Dr. Harsha will just have to read it and accept the fact that it has been brought to them by the commission in question, that's not democracy.
You know, I told Tulsi all this, right? If Tulsi said that I am whining, no, I'm not whining, Tulsi. I mean, I've had this discussion with him from the day we saw this. I'm quite
because
open.
Tulsi is not here today, Dr. Harsha. Let's not talk about
he's a nice guy. You know, let me tell you, he's trying to do a good job. No, I am not finding fault with him. I'm not finding fault with him.
Yeah.
I think he's a solid professional, right?
Right. Okay.
I respect the man.
Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that.
On the other hand, you see that these things must have been discussed in courts, right?
Yeah.
Because these are matters related to the as it was explained by Dr. Harsha. These are matters related to the sovereignty of the people.
So that
I don't think that
is why
this thing like I'm sure we can wait and see tomorrow, right? When they give the judgment.
Yeah,
right?
so that you're right.
Yeah,
we have taken this to the His Lordship, the Chief Justice, and we have pointed it out to him. Look, this is snatching away the sovereignty of the people.
At least we are trying to make a public discourse of this, Dr. Veerasinghe, because the government has not given ample time for the public to have a say on this. That is why
it could have happened in a more organized,
systematic,
manner, more
transparent
manner, more transparent manner. There is no
question
words about that.
And I think this is can I just give one minute? Right. I think we need. Let's take a step back from the technicalities of this and try to understand what democracy means. Right. Democracy is not simply about a constitution and the law, and we know very well that the 20th Amendment eroded the power of the parliament. It is in that context that this bill becomes even more dangerous, because even in a sort of the standard sort of understanding of a liberal democratic framework, balance of power, accountability, all of those things are key. And we very well know that the 20th Amendment eroded all of that. So we are talking about this bill in that context. Let's not forget that. Right? We are not talking in a situation where there's a perfectly functioning democracy, where people's sovereignty is being expressed in its ideal form. Not at all.
No, was it perfect?
It was never.
Was it perfect even before that?
It was never perfect, and democracy will never be perfect. Democracy is always something that is a work in progress. But let us not forget that we took a step backwards from that process. We haven't moved forward. The 20th Amendment took us backwards in terms of democratizing this country. So it is in such a context that we are talking about a bill that is directly even further weakening the oversight role of the parliament, and that's one of the biggest blows that you can place on a democratic
Nishant, before I come to you, Dr. Veerasinghe, because Dr. Harini mentioned the fact that the 20th Amendment of the Constitution eroded the democratic framework in Sri Lanka, which was existence through the 19th Amendment of the Constitution. Your leader, Professor Tissa Vitarana,
it's not my leader.
Yeah, but the leader of the
he's LSSP, Armed Communist Party.
Samaj Party, a party that is working alongside your party. We've seen the manner in which how your members voted in favor of the 19th Amendment of the Constitution.
Yeah, we voted. In Communist Party also voted.
Yeah, then it went on to vote for the 20th Amendment of the Constitution.
Yeah, we voted for 20th Amendment.
Yeah, so what does that mean?
No, you know that now you see that we know that it's a that you have gone backward in
that is accepted.
Of course, but we did our best to introduce certain amendments to the original draft presented by the government, where we succeeded. But then there were certain
if the government didn't listen to you, you should have voted against the bill.
No, we don't do that way.
Why
because,
is that?
No.
Isn't that a democracy?
No, no. The democracy, because you're
talking about democracy.
Democracy is not that you are going to go against, at each turn and at each step that okay they are not with
Isn't that why that one member of the Communist Party has been appointed to Parliament?
Not because of that.
Why?
You see,
why did the right-minded people
we
vote
contested
someone?
in two districts, and one of them won.
One of them won. So isn't the reason being the like-minded people in Sri Lanka wanted a representative from the Sri Lanka Communist Party in Parliament because they wanted their ideologies,
their voice to be heard,
and you're not doing that. And you all should be ashamed of it.
No, you see that you are using very strong words here.
No, I'm not using strong words.
Let me tell you, right now there are several leftist parties in Parliament. You look at them. Most of them, reduced their numbers in Parliament in last election. So are you going to accuse all of them with the same kind of accusation? They are much complicated than this. They are much complicated than this.
If I voted for them, I would definitely raise my question.
They are much complicated than what you are trying to portray, right? I mean, you are going to find one reason for all the.
What I'm trying to do is, Dr. Veerasinghe, just to give some clarity to it. What I'm trying to do is, if members have been elected by the people because their ideologies have to be portrayed through them in the legislature, and if you are not doing
which we are doing,
and if you are not doing it only based on the whim and fancy of the government because you are a part of the government, that's wrong.
No, not on whims and fancy of government.
That is wrong.
You see now when they introduced 20th Amendment, right? I mean, we took a very independent stance.
What was independent stance? I mean,
was that the original bill that was passed in Parliament? It's not.
But you all decided to vote in favor of the bill.
Yeah, of course, because of those changes.
So you were satisfied with the 20th Amendment?
I won't say that we are fully satisfied, but we were in a coalition. Right, that is how you work in coalition.
But Dr. Veerasinghe, I understand with like an ordinary bill, like you make some compromises. But with a constitutional amendment, how can you support it if you're not satisfied? I mean, this is the constitution, the supreme law of the country. This is not a budget. This is not an annual budget. It's not a some compromise that you're making on legislation that requires a simple majority to pass.
Was it a carrot
with 20th Amendment, still President is less than what he was. I mean, the presidency. But it is little more than what Maithripala Sirisena was.
Can you explain that a little bit, Dr. Veerasinghe? How is it less than what he was?
Yeah, because now I can give one simple example, right?
From
it's like this, Dr. Harini. Now the previous, during Mahinda Rajapaksa's time, he had the power to dissolve Parliament after 1 year, for an example. Now the current law stands this way. It's 2.5 years. It's not the same. Am I right?
No, I'm talking about from the 19th to the 20th. Did the president's powers increase
not
or
19th to the 20th. What I'm saying is that he is less than, the power is less than what the previous president's
Pre-19.
Pre-19, yeah, of course.
So we went back to 18.
Yeah, pre-19. No, not 18. I mean, not 18. I mean, pre-19 period. But but now
so it restored the powers
20th,
of the president that were taken
he acquired
away from
some more powers. But still, it's less than before 19. This is what I am saying.
So Nishan, and then I want to give Jam an opportunity. Yes.
Just, I don't know whether I just need to, put my perspective into what Dr. Harsha said. Now,
on the Economic Commission bill.
Yeah, that is where we are. But specifically in respect of 53.4, I don't know what this SAHO is about. Because 53.4 says, now what does 53.4 work on? It works on 53.3. What does 53.3 say? 53.3 says the Commission is empowered to give the exemptions or the incentives provided in Schedule 2 or Schedule 3.
Okay.
Right. So now that is the same exemption. You might agree, you might disagree.
No, there is nothing to agree or disagree. These are facts.
These are facts. So this is.
So let's argue that.
Yes.
You are the lawyer now.
Yes. So what does this do? What does subsection?
Schedule 2,
shall I read subsection 4? The subsection which you impugned.
Okay.
Upon the expiry of 30 days from the date of such order published in Gazette.
Right.
Under subsection 3,
Correct.
such order along with written confirmation issued under the hand of the Commission confirming the exemptions and incentives.
Correct.
Yeah, so not making laws.
No, I said that, okay, hold on.
So let me conclude now. I didn't interrupt, no, doctor. I just want two minutes.
No, that's not fair. No, if Dr. Harsha wants to interject, he can
but
do
then
so.
he has to interject. I think I will give him more ammunition to interject. Right? So I will give him more ammunition so he can counter me further by looking at 71. 71 ensures that Dr. Harsha and his capacity as a parliamentarian is maintained. As sovereignty, the legislative power is still with Parliament. What does it say? Regulation. 71 subsection 1.
Right. Okay, now hold on. Let us listen to Dr. Harsha and then come back to you.
I'm trying to be a lawyer here, right? This is not, the learned gentleman here said regulation. We are not talking about a regulation.
No, so regulation becomes law.
We are talking about an incentive. What did I say? What is the example I took? A man comes, want to set up 5 casinos, and the Commission agrees that he can set up the 5 casinos. And then the Commission gives 25 years tax holidays for the man to set up 5 casinos. That is what I am saying.
Yes, so
right. Currently, it cannot happen. It has to come to Parliament like what is happening tomorrow, and that is significant because it is an investment into the port city. The first investment into the port city before this draft act becomes, or bill becomes an act. Therefore, he has to come to Parliament.
Nishan, you can respond now.
Yes.
Yeah. So now, this is the piece of legislature which is going to empower this form of modus operandi to be transpiring in respect to the Ports Commission. So now that is going to be what is going to be approved in Parliament, subject to what the Supreme Court is going to say. Supreme Court might agree with Dr. Harsha and say, no, this is violating Parliament's ability to, the fiscal policy of Parliament is going to be undermined, and say that it cannot be done. Right? But if the Supreme Court holds otherwise. So this is the law, then it's going to be law. Parliament is going to give that power to the Commission.
Do you think that...
That's why we have a Supreme Court. There is a determination.
Again, getting to the context, do you, in your capacity, not as an advisor, but in your capacity as a lawyer, do you believe that the Parliament should be delegating, shirking its responsibility in public finance and giving it to this commission? Do you believe that this bill enables that?
Yes, I truly believe that. Why? Because we have a parliament, with all due respect to the parliamentarian, there are fights in the parliament. Parliaments are sometimes functus. For 3 months, for 6 months, there are no parliaments functioning. You want this autonomous self-regulatory body, which is attempting to create incentives and bring in investors to go for every little thing to Parliament. So that is why the law...
It's not a little thing.
It's not a little thing.
No,
it's
no,
a
no, it is not so. So that
don't.
is why the BOI Act, my dear, with all due respect to all of you all, the BOI Act also has given a certain degree of discretion to the BOI.
But the BOI can't give tax holidays without Parliament's approval.
Right. No, so that is why the Supreme Court is... Now that is why we are coming back to whether BOI was a success story or not.
So
you're saying the BOI...
No, we don't want to shut down Parliament.
So you're saying...
Nishan,
just to be clear, you're saying that... Sorry, are you saying that the BOI would have been successful if they were able to give 25-year tax holidays?
I don't know. I believe the lesser the roadblocks, subject to judicial scrutiny.
If that's the case, why have an election? Why have the parliament?
Why have a parliament at all?
Parliament is there to make laws, not to decide on decisions effected. That is why the law is made, law is put into place. If the law is violated, there is a judiciary to challenge it.
There is no oversight.
What more oversight than making the piece of legislature?
Legislation plus
they are
oversight.
making it.
The two functions.
I'm not making it.
But excuse me.
The government is making it. Okay, fine. But that is coming through the Parliament.
So the issue is, the Parliament has full control over public finance. This is tax, right? We are running at 9% of GDP as tax. We are currently the lowest in the entire world. We don't have the money to pay for hospital beds. We don't have the money to buy vaccines. People are asking for donations to put wall oxygen units. Doctors are writing and saying, please help us in this hospital, that hospital. We don't have the money, okay? Right? So then we have to be careful with the money that we have. So when fiscal responsibility is given to the legislature in this constitution, this is taking it away. So you're going to create a big hole in the existing revenue collection. More than that, there is another problem, and that is there is going to be what I call transfer pricing, and transfer pricing will erode the ability of the state to collect taxes. You see, this is a funny piece of legislation. In the draft that we prepared and the draft that Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa prepared, none of this is there, which is you can engage in business with an entity on the mainland. However, how do you do that is, you establish yourself as an authorized entity in the port city, you have an agreement with a company that is registered in Kurunegala, you run an enterprise. What happens to the Kurunegala business people? You think they can survive? What is going to happen to the local businessman? Can he compete with him when he is giving 14 laws? He doesn't have to pay taxes.
So there is no competitive.
Hold on a minute. It gets worse. It gets worse. And that is business to business. Then it says you can do business to consumer. You can do business to consumer. Right? When you have business to business, you have transfer pricing. You know, you bring all the profits to the port city entity and then you declare the profits there, you don't pay taxes, right? And then what about the business to consumer? You can sell to people in the mainland.
Nishan, now 20th Amendment to the Constitution, there were no fathers, but because people didn't know who drafted the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. Are you aware as to who drafted this Economic Commission bill? No idea. Now I'm asking you a question as a representative from the Ministry of Justice. You can't ask me that question.
Thank you, Shah. Dr. Harsha, we were speaking about the Colombo International Finances Center earlier, and now the Gazette has also been released earlier today. I don't know whether you were able to peruse it. And when we were talking about the port city, my first question to you, it's twofold. My first question to you is purely out of curiosity as a discerning citizen of this country. Who do you think invested the initial 100 million or 100 billion into the Colombo International Finance Center, into this strategic development project? And secondly, when I was going through this...
Jama, with your permission, let's ask one question at a time.
Sure.
So it's easy, or else Dr. Harsha, being the politician he is, might not answer your first question, and we'll go on to the second question. Yes.
All right, okay.
No, as a member of parliament, I'm embarrassed that parliament has released something like that. This is absolute nonsense. It is $1 billion investment, not $100 billion investment. I will take it up with the Secretary General tomorrow. So that is 1 billion. This agreement was entered into about 3 years ago, but due to various issues, I think it was supposed to happen just after the coup happened. It was supposed to be, I think, in November or something of 2018, but because of the coup, everything got postponed and various other things happened and all of that. The original investor was going to be the project company, Czech Port City. Now subsequently it was changed. It is Czech Port City and Browns International Limited. So these are the two companies that have come together to invest $1 billion over a period of time. So this is not coming tomorrow, right? It will take, I think, 8 years for this investment to come. I think that is what the Gazette says, if I remember correctly. That is what we discussed in Public Finance Committee.
Just second question, Jab.
And when going through this Gazette, it says that this project will be exempted from a number of acts or taxes, corporate income tax, dividend tax, VAT and so on. So as someone who doesn't have a vivid knowledge of how this works, where will the money come in to Sri Lanka? How will Sri Lanka benefit? How will the Sri Lankan economy benefit through this project? Can you apprise me?
Yes, I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, you know, we never addressed that. The whole idea, you see, when China introduced special economic zones under Chairman Deng, right, in 1978-79, Shenzhen was a fishing community of 20,000 homes. Today it is, I think, the fourth largest city in China. I think has about 25 million people living there. Per capita income of Shenzhen is more than $25,000. So it has been a huge success. Now you consider China and its legal framework in 1980. They were trying to understand what made Japan, Singapore success. They were trying to understand how the market economy worked. So they said this is a policy lab. They call it a laboratory. They said legislative laboratory. Then they said, let's bring this legal ease of doing business, you know, relax the normal laws. For instance, it is like this. In China, you have the People's Congress, right? That's what it's called, People's Congress. Yeah, the National People's Congress. Then you have Provincial People's Congress. Earlier, what used to happen was if an investor wanted to make an investment, it had to go to the Provincial People's Congress, and Provincial People's Congress had to approve it. China said, look, we'll do away with that, and we will bring this special economic zone law, which will say the commission will approve the investment, and we will let the Provincial People's Congress know we have done that. So that is where all this is coming from, if I read it right. But the objective was, if it is a lab, if it worked, we can take it to the rest of the country. So after the first one in Shenzhen, I am not good at Chinese names, they set up 4 others along the coast and so on. And then what happened was, subsequently China became a member of the WTO. When China became a member of the WTO, they agreed to accept the international structures of a market economy. They liberalized. China liberalized. Whether you want to use that term or not is another matter, right? And then they applied some of these laws that worked in Shenzhen and other areas into other parts of China. And then China started to grow. What happened was, the communist model was good in a way, but not in the way the modern economic needs and wants of the people expected. So that is the success story. So here also, when we were doing this, I said, let's use this as a policy lab. If this works, we'll try to relax some of the laws that exist in the rest of the country, right? So that we can move Sri Lanka as a whole to the next level, right? Now, having said that, this particular zone, I didn't want to call it the port city. If I had my way, I would have called it the knowledge city, right? Because what we are trying to bring here is technology intensive services. I always say this, to develop this country, we have to move from simple product and services producing country to complex products and services producing country. So therefore, we need to bring in the know-how. I don't agree with my colleague Harini that we have all the knowledge and technical expertise. We have to bring it in. So that is why we try to sign the Singapore Agreement. This government, which was in opposition then, my God, created such a hue and cry. You are trying to sign the Singapore Agreement. These people are saying, no, any foreigner can come and work. There is no limit, right? Whereas the Singapore Agreement was to say, you have to have so many people coming in. They also have to have certain qualifications above such and so on. So this is an absolute contradiction here, because they don't know what they stand for. One day they are saying, don't open up, right? Close up everything. Next day they are saying, let's open up, bring everybody in, right? If you ask my honest opinion, I want to open up, right? I'm not shy about speaking about this, and Sri Lanka needs to engage itself with the rest of the world. So Sri Lanka will benefit if the success can be then taken in policy terms to the rest of the country, but otherwise with jobs that will get created, people will they will come here, they want to play golf, they will go to Digana and play golf, they want to go and shop at Laksala or some place like that, they'll do that, they want to go to Bayleaf and have a beer on a Friday night, they will do that. So all that will be additions to the economy.
At a time like this, Dr. Harsha, let's not promote individuals having alcohol.
I'm saying not now, but what I'm saying is that's the plan, right?
Right.
That's the plan.
So anyway, getting back to Nishan. Nishan, so you said that the port civil regulation is entrusted with regulatory bodies in Sri Lanka like the SEC as well as the central bank. If that case is going to be as it is, as you just mentioned, does the existing regulators have the capacity to compete with global financial centers?
Existing regulators meaning the SEC
and central bank.
The blame to the SEC is that there is so many wrongdoings. There's insider trading, there is market artificial inflation on share prices, so many issues have been drawn up. So the SEC is, some take the view that the SEC does not have enough teeth, but I believe the SEC has ample teeth. SEC has its own self-regulatory law-making power. It can make its own rules and it can thereafter punish persons, directors of listed companies who have not adhered to its takeovers and mergers code regulations, to the listing rules. They can be even brought before the magistrate and prosecuted. So I believe the laws are there. The laws are there, but with all due respect, I gave this example to the Supreme Court. In my submission, what I said was, now you don't want to put the most senior most government servant to be the chairman of the SEC. He might not understand the market sentiment. He might make a bona fide decision thinking it is in the best interest of all the investors. That seemingly happened. I don't want to draw aspersions on anything, but the market which was at about 8,500 points at somewhere around in February came down for no apparent reason. There was no COVID, there was no any other issue in the global markets. It came, and there is a notion between the segments or the stakeholders in the stock market that it was due to a wrongdoing of the regulator. This is not my position. So that is why you need people with expertise and people who can appreciate the market sentiment. I don't believe, my humble position is that we should not just, when government changes, you don't keep appointing people into these bodies. It can't happen. I agree with Dr. Harsha. That can't happen. You need specialized people to sit here and monitor, and their terms and tenors have to be secure. You have
not run away from the country when there's a problem.
That is not.
Don't take it too far. What I meant was not the commissioners. I meant employees.
Right. Okay. So we're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. We will be discussing about the final thoughts of Harsha, Dr. Veerasinghe, as well as Harini and Nishan in the final round, uninterrupted final round. No new arguments can be brought forward in the final round. So we're going for a short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We are discussing about Sri Lanka's current political climate with an emphasis on COVID-19, as well as the Port City Economic Commission Bill, which would be deliberated in the next 3 days in Parliament, 2 days of debate. And tomorrow we'll see the Supreme Court determination coming into play. So all this and more after the short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back.
COVID-19 සඳහා ආරක්ෂිත පියවර. ජනයා වැඩි වශයෙන් සිටින ස්ථානයන්හි ගැවසීම මගහරින්න. රෝගය ආසාදිත පුද්ගලයන් හමුවීමට නොයන්න. මුහුණ, මුඛය, නාසය සහ ඇස් ඇල්ලීමෙන් වළකින්න. අනවශ්‍ය ගමන් බිමන් යෑමෙන් වළකින්න. මුකාවරණය ඉදිරිපස ඇල්ලීමෙන් වලකින්න.
We're stronger together.
සැකේ කියන්නේ ඒක ඔයා හිතන සැකේ හරි වෙන්නත් පුළුවන් වැරදි වෙන්න.
තරග පරාජයත් එක්ක වැඩි වශයෙන් එල්ලයට එන කාරණාවක් තමයි තරග පාවා දීම ගැන.
මම දන්නේ මට නම් ඇවිල්ලා නැහැ.
ඔබ කතා කරන්න බයයි.
නෑ මම කතා කරන්නේ
එකයි සහ ඒ විශ්ව ප්‍රශ්නේ ගැන.
නෑ එහෙම බයක් නෙමෙයි.
මම ක්‍රිකට් ක්‍රීඩාවෙන් නික්මෙන්න විශිෂ්ටයෙක් විදිහට.
කොයි විදිහේ ප්ලෑන් එකද තියෙන්නේ?
පරිපාලන වලට එන්නේ නැහැ.
කරන්න පුළුවන් දේවල් ගොඩක් තියෙනවා.
රන් අඩපැය කාලයේ බුද්ධිමය ආමන්ත්‍රණය.
ජීවිතය කියන්නේ ඉස්සරහට යන්න ඕන ගමන. හැබැයි සමහර වෙලාවට ආපස්සටත් යන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. ඒ ගමනේ මූලාශ්‍ර අයිති ඉතිහාසය වගකීම තියෙන්නේ වර්තමානයට, වත්කම අනාගතයට. මේ ඒ තුන්කල් හරහා දිවෙන අපේ ගවේෂණාත්මක සංචාරයයි. පුරාවත සෙනසුරාදා රාත්‍රී 7:30ට TV1 තුලින්.
රන් අඩපැය කාලයේ බුද්ධිමය ආමන්ත්‍රණය.
Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We start off the final round with Dr. G. Veerasinghe, General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Communist Party.
Okay, now see that we have to understand that the world economic order is changing, right? It is already multilateral. Now, in terms of multilateralism, cooperation amongst countries is imperative, right? Imperative. Now, we live in the Asian economic zone, right? Asian economy is the vanguard economy of the world economy. It is a reality whether one likes it or not. Now, Belt and Road Initiative projects, though initiated by China, today embraces over 100 countries in the world. This is a reality, right? The geopolitical position of Sri Lanka in the Indian Ocean has enhanced its value due to the above factors, the factors that I mentioned. This is an unprecedented advantage for Sri Lanka. Though this project is challenging, it is equally an opportunity, which we cannot miss or lose. Now, there are other things that are being called geoeconomics. Now, geoeconomics is much in our favor. This is a new factor brought about by the Asian economy. Asia had to undergo so many wars: Korean War, Vietnamese War, Middle East War, Afghan War, many things, right? Now, what I want to emphasize here is that there is an opportunity that is being presented to our country with the rise of Asia. It is basically, it's going with Chinese economy. Chinese economy is that is the biggest producer in the world, biggest exporter in the world, right? Biggest market in the world, right? So therefore, you see that there is an excellent opportunity that is given through this project, which we really can't miss, right? That now as my final words, please look at the current status of the economy. As I said, this is the result of more than 4 decades of policies that we have been following, right? Now, balance of payment, there is a deficit, right? Now, foreign exchange reserve, we have around 4 billion, at least it should be around 8 billion at least, right? Now government revenue, it was mentioned by Dr. Harsha also, it was 24% or something of GDP in 1978. It is about 9% now, right? Now foreign debt, it's around 57 billion US dollars, right? Now, you know, there had been no substantial foreign direct investments since 1978, despite all concessions that we have given, you know, during past so many years. So there is no way out for Sri Lanka without mega projects like Port City. There is no way out without making best use of Belt and Road projects in the context of impending world economic crisis.
Thank you very much, Dr. G. Veerasingan, General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Communist Party. We now move our attention to Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, Member of Parliament, National People's Power.
Thank you, Shami. I think the question that people of this country have to ask is why the unseemly haste with which this government is pushing this bill through. If it's as wonderful as it is, if it is going to bring all these advantages to our country, then there's absolutely no need at this point in time for us to rush through this bill in this manner, because as we all know, we are in the midst of an epidemic, and there are huge problems that the Parliament should be addressing and should be focusing on at this point in time. As you pointed out, when the person in charge of managing this epidemic is not even in the country, then at least the Parliament should be taking up these issues and prioritizing the health needs of this country. So this unseemly haste, in our view, is there because there's something that this government is trying to hide, and something that they do not want the public to know about this, and this is why they are using the power that they have to rush this bill through. And let me reiterate the fact that we are doing it in a context where democracy is severely under assault in this country, and this bill will be a further assault on the oversight and legislative functions of the Parliament. So the other question I want to ask is that something that we need to ask ourselves. We keep promoting this project as if it's going to solve the problems that we are currently facing, solve the economic problems that the country is currently facing, and we really need to think more critically about that. Because how is this going to increase revenue for the country? How is this going to help us repay our debts? How is it going to resolve unemployment issues? All of these things also need to be considered. Furthermore, we've been focusing only on the constitutionality of this bill, but this bill has impact in terms of the sovereignty of the country. It has impact in terms of foreign relations. We are going to be pushed into a situation where we are caught in a global power struggle, because there will be other parties that are not going to be happy about this, and it means then that we are going to, whether we like it or not, be caught up in this situation, caught up in this regional power struggle between superpowers over which we will have very little control. So the consequences of this bill go beyond the constitutionality of this piece of legislation, and the haste with which this bill is being pushed is not allowing us to really look at all those other consequences that this legislation will have on things that go beyond what is stated in the Constitution.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, Member of Parliament representing the NPP. Attorney at Law Nishan Premitiratna.
So tomorrow is going to be the D-Day, because the Supreme Court of this country is going to take all of our views and decide whether each and every single provision of this proposed bill requires a 2/3 majority, or whether it can be passed by way of a simple majority, or whether it ought to be taken to a referendum. So all of us, I believe, in consensus will concede that the findings of the Supreme Court is the ultimate finding, and that is where our sovereignty or the judicial power of the people is vested. So if the Supreme Court makes a finding that certain provisions need to be amended, or certain provisions need not be amended, and it can go through as it is, then it is a matter for the legislature to deliberate that in Parliament. Now I came here on the 4th of April, that was about 6 weeks ago. So now that day my position was the spirit, overall spirit of the bill was in order. I also said that the bill does not in any way, to my opinion, undermine the sovereignty of all of us. That is still intact, and we can scrutinize every single part of the act or the intended conduct which is intended through this commission which is to be set up. There were arguments, deliberations made that certain cases which are to be taken in respect of disputes arising within the port city will be given an expeditious hearing. Arbitration was made mandatory. Whether that is correct, whether this money laundering act would apply, whether the Port City Commission members can be removed, whether they can only be appointed by the President, but all of those matters were deliberated, and there are clear provisions in the bill which empower the removal of the Commission, and in any event, if the President of this country, it is my position, if the President violates his mandate in the way he is required to appoint, we people can challenge that in the Supreme Court. And this is not novel, or this is not an alien thing which is unseen in respects of other bills or laws which have already been passed. The BOI Act has very clearly provided that the President
thoughts, Dr. Harsha De Silva, Member of Parliament of the Samak Janabalawege.
Nishan said this. He said that he said this is going to be a Jurassic Park, and it is not going to be a Jurassic Park.
I said it was portrayed.
Nishan, you need to let Dr. Harsha.
But it was your two words, Jurassic Park. But others have argued that this should be a fantasy island, right? So whether it is a Jurassic Park or a fantasy island, I guess what we will find out depending on the determination of the Supreme Court. Now, a few things here. If it goes through in this way, it will create complications going forward because of the 4 points that I made earlier. This must be a public corporation. If it is a public corporation, a lot of the issues that we have been debating here would be resolved in terms of not violating the Constitution, in terms of being accountable to Parliament, in terms of doing the right thing by the people. So we want it to be a public corporation. Second thing is the commissioners. The commissioners should be ex officio by and large, and others should be appointed now, since there is no constitutional council, at least the parliamentary council. The third one is that this must be regulated by the central bank and other regulatory bodies that exist. Fourth one, close the loopholes in the law so that the little revenue that the government makes by taxing shouldn't be further eroded by tax breaks given by purely the 5 or 7 commissioners who are not responsible, not answerable to Parliament as it now stands. Now, having said all that, let me reiterate that Samagi Jana Balawega wants the port city to work. We believe it is in the best interest of the country down the road for a number of reasons. And one reason that I am particularly interested is in we need reforms in doing business. We need reforms in laws. We need reforms in the bureaucratic establishment. We need those reforms. It's difficult to bring these reforms in toto in the entire country at once. So if we can do these reforms here and then subsequently take it to the rest of the country, it is good. Two, if we can use that to bring in the expertise, the knowledge, the know-how, to move from simple products, simple services producing country to a complex services producing country, that's where we really want to go. And we have current immigration and visa restrictions that we cannot bring people in. It is the same people who are in opposition who protested like they were going to be, massacred, that Indians will come in shiploads, Singaporeans will come in shiploads, take their jobs. Now they have taken a 180-degree turn and they are saying, look, we need to bring this expertise in, which is good. I'm glad that people are seeing what it is for in reality. And when you are in government, you realize what it is. When you're in opposition, sometimes you are irresponsibly making statements. And therefore, also, if our people benefit from this, if jobs are created, right, that is good. So we are not opposed to this, as Dr. Veera Singh also mentioned. But what we are opposed to, please understand, is that this must be a part of this country. This must be run by us. It cannot be given away to a bunch of unelected people to make decisions that impact upon the 22 million of us living on the mainland, right? It has to add value to Sri Lanka, right? So that is the problem that we have. So hopefully if the Supreme Court comes back with a determination that addresses these points that we have raised in the Supreme Court, we'll be happy to discuss it, bring in our amendments, and we want the government to listen to the
De Silva, Attorney at Law Nishan Premtiratna, as well as Dr. Harini Amarasuri for joining us this evening on the show. Thank you very much, Nadeem. Thank you very much, Jamal. And thank you very much, John, for joining us this evening on Face the Nation. On a lighter note, the things that I got to know personally about most of the panelists today are that the Communist Party has changed gears as far as economic policy is concerned. So that's something new that I've learned today. And then Dr. Harsha De Silva's intentions to run for presidency. Not now, but 9 years from now.
Still very young.
And then also the fact that Nishan has not still been able to get his plan passed for his house in Colombo. So I hope I didn't find anything to say about Dr. Harini, unfortunately, very discreet about the things that she was speaking about. So anyway, leaving at that, I think COVID-19, the situation in Sri Lanka is quite dire. Wash your hands, wear your mask, maintain social distancing, as well as try to stay at home as much as possible. The situation is dire as we speak. 19 deaths have been reported for the day. Many are saying that the numbers are not reflective of the actual numbers. We don't know. These cannot be independently verified, but what you can do at home is to make sure that you maintain a social distance, wash your hands, as well as wear a mask. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Take care.
පින්ස්වර ඇසෙනා සුපිම්බර වෙසක් මාසයයි